Do you like the shirt?
I do. I really like that shirt and the colors.
It's kind of one of those things. Sometimes when I look at it, I think it's one of those that if you look closely at it, then you see like the elk hiding in the trees kind of thing. Or
That's what I was wondering. I'm like, it feels like there should be a surprise popping out of that shirt.
So we talked on a recent edition about people who felt the need to get away, to escape their everyday, the mundane, the routine.
Yep.
Along those lines, there was, it was like a survey or study that found that even with all of the different entertainment options we've got, and good God, there's an awful lot of them now. There's almost too many, and that could be another episode.
Yeah.
But they said even with all of that, the study found that people claim that they're more bored than they've ever been. People are more bored, which is interesting and odd to me. But
I would wonder what it would be like if we broke it down by age groups, demographics, like what would it be? Because I know I've got a 19-year-old daughter, and if she's used to constant stimulation, I will see her gaming with her phone, doing something else, and then something on the screen. Like she has all this stuff going on. And I think back to my childhood, and it's not like I just had sticks to play with, but I can remember as a kid being bored. And my parents just let me be bored. And I think my daughter's generation and other younger people don't know how to be bored. They don't know how to not have constant stimulation.
that is correct. So my favorite memory of the B word was when I was maybe 10, 12 years old. And I remember coming in the house and made the horrible mistake of announcing very dramatically how bored I was. And I have this great memory of my father, the old first sergeant. He just like raised his eyebrows. He goes, "Oh, you're bored? Come with me." And he took me out to the garage and he pointed to everything in the garage that needed to be straightened up and cleaned and stuff like that. He goes, "Get to it." And I tried to come back in like an hour later. He's like, no, you still got more to do out there. Melissa, I guarantee you, I never let that word fall out of my mouth ever again.
That's funny.
But I was also like you in that I was constantly outside doing things. And, and we have trained this is not one of those, back when I was a kid. But it is true that generations have been trained to have constant input, right?
Yes. Because it's funny. Another, like a parent story. I remember coming into my house and telling my mom and sitting on the kitchen chair going, I'm so bored. And she's like, well, hi, bored. I'm mom. And I'm like, that was her comeback. And she's like, well, go figure it out. And I was like, ooh, can I watch TV? She's like, no, it's not TV time yet. And it was okay. And I'll go in my room and lay on the bed and I will find something to do. And I think that was it. She didn't fix the problem for me. I couldn't use social media. We didn't have it, or phone, we had phones, but it's not like I'm going to play on my phone. So it's just funny to think how kids now they don't have that ability. And I don't think it's just kids. I think I know I find myself restless when I don't have a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
So I can't even blame kids.
Well, to me, and this is just me speaking personally, is that I regret or I'm saddened by the fact that the word has a stigma attached to it that is negative. Like if you're bored, then there's something horribly wrong. And that's the one thing you want to make sure that you can overcome is that you're not bored.
Right.
And I have written extensively about the joy, the gift, I guess is a better word to use, the gift of boredom when it comes to creativity.
Yes.
And you take any of the most creative people throughout history, and almost all of them had something to say about the power and the gift of boredom, because that is when the mind really starts working, really starts trying to paint, that canvas that is blank. Whereas if you're sitting there and you're always staring at content on your phone or your iPad or on a TV screen, that if you constantly have input, your brain isn't having to do any work really at all. And honestly, with a lot of the stuff that you see content wise, your brain does not have to work at all. And so I lament the fact that whether it's young people or adults, that they don't allow themselves the freedom of being bored so that they can start coming up with things themselves, inventing new worlds for themselves, coming up with fresh ideas on how to fix some sort of problem in their life. I just wish that the word bored wasn't always associated with a negative.
And it always has been since we were kids. And yeah, being bored is the worst. As a kid, nothing was worse than being bored. But you're right. That's where the creativity. I mean, I think about it. Think about how many great ideas happen when you're in the shower or you're on vacation, or for me, on walks. When my brain is not trying to think of things and I just let it go, that's when the stuff comes in. And trying to explain that concept to my 19-year-old daughter, she's just looking at me like a deer in headlights. Like, why would I want that?
Well, she probably doesn't want to hear that either.
And it's funny because my sister, I'll talk to her because she's always going, massive stuff going on all the time. And I'm like, why don't you just like the quiet? Like, don't you sometimes just want nothing? She's like, no, that's when all the thoughts and emotions and everything comes in and I don't want to deal with it.
Well, now that's interesting. Some people don't want to be bored because they don't want to be alone with their thoughts.
Yep. And that's exactly what she said. And it was so profound because she knows that about herself. She's like, no, there's stuff I don't want to deal with. And that's the stuff that pops in my head when I'm bored and I don't have stuff going on.
So if she puts a bunch of garbage into her face and stuff like that, then it's an escape from her problems or something.
It's absolutely an escape from her problems.
Wow. Well, you know, if all the talks that I've given at schools about writing and writing workshops, and of course there's always the line, where do you get your ideas? Where do you get your ideas? Where do you get your ideas? People are always curious about that. Like there's some sort of aisle at Target or Walmart, you know, where they have all the ideas lined up. Yeah. And it's exactly what you said a moment ago. It's like I go for walks and that's where I come up with the bulk of my ideas. And in fact, you know, on this ridiculous device here, which in some respects is fantastic and other respects is like the bane of our existence. In this case, I have it with me not to be looking at it or to be listening to something, but as a way that I can pull this out when I think of something, make a note on it and save it. If you went through the notes section of my phone, you'd be scrolling for a long, long time. Because that's just where I put down whether it's going to be something that we do on the radio show or something for a book or for an article or something like that. And it's getting outside and walking without stimulation other than natural stimulation.
Yeah. It is. And that's what I've tried to tell people. For me, I mean, I'm the same way. Outside is where I connect to me. And I think that's one of the reasons when we were talking about places you'd want to be, I love the ocean because I love that sound. That sound almost helps me get out of my head and some of my crazy thoughts. Like it just helps me go to a different place. I can't even explain it. And that's when things, all of a sudden I'll be like, oh my gosh, I have this great idea. And I'm writing it down on something or recording it. I leave myself voice memos on my phone all the time. Because I was like, why have I never thought of that? Because my brain's too busy.
Well, and that is such, you know, your happy spot to be sitting in maybe a beach chair or on a towel or whatever on the beach. And you like the natural sound, but there are a lot of people who that would drive them crazy because there's no outside stimulation.
Right.
I go for walks in the woods all the time, and it is so serene and so peaceful. And I can't even tell you the number of times as I'm walking along the path, I hear noise coming towards me, but it doesn't sound like people talking. And as they get closer, it'll either be one or two people, and they have their phone going with like music thumping. Yeah. They can't even walk through the woods for 30 minutes without some sort of stimulation. They don't want to be alone with those sounds. And so I think you and I are A, preaching to the choir to the people who agree with this, and B, talking to a wall, because you will never convince a lot of people to give up that outside stimuli, right?
Right. I think it's also just getting honest with yourself. Because when I kept pushing my sister, and she finally goes, look, I don't want to feel everything and think about everything. I went, that's it right there. Because I was like, I don't understand. And so the more we talked about it, which is another episode of this, bigger issues of, people that feel like they're going to drown with their thoughts and their emotions and that heaviness. And, I've done enough therapy now where I'm like, oh, feeling stuff, that's my jam. I love talking about feelings and thoughts and feelings and all of that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like your sister needs to get outside and go for a walk straight to a therapist.
Trust me, we've had that chat. She's like, no, thanks.
Well, hopefully you are not bored today, and hopefully you're finding some joy out of the After Hours segment. I'm Dom. That's Melissa. And we'll come back with another episode soon. Be well, Melissa Moore.
You be well and quiet and introspective.